Hi there, my name is William Michael Forbes.
Hi, I'm Norma Jones.
And I'm a medium, a channel, a trance channel, and an intuitive life coach. And we run courses and classes on mediumship. But we've been inclined to bring a message forth from this being by the name of Jamal Ipsekeu. Now, Jamal Ipsekeu came to me about 3.5 months ago and brought a short message to humanity through. And for about 3 days now, he's been appearing in my thoughts every morning and saying, I want you to speak about this, I want you to speak about this, I want you to speak about this. And he's presented some interesting ideas to us, and he's this beautiful, tall, black man, just exquisitely beautiful, like midnight black. And he's in, I don't know what you call that garb, but it's a single long garb, and he's very tall, like we're talking 7 feet tall. And Jamal says he originated from what we call Africa, which in his day they called the original Eden. They called it Eden. And it's where the flashpoint of humanity's consciousness originated from on this planet. And also that humanity was at that time, 70,000 years ago, he says, at that time humanity was a unified whole, regardless of our skin color, regardless of our politics, regardless of our social ideology. Everything functioned as a unified whole. And he's going to talk a bit about that today. But that's a little bit of his history. And when I posted the message from him last time, it was about a week and a half ago, somebody said, will we be hearing from Jamal Ipsekeu? And at that point, I hadn't even thought about him. And it was like 4 or 5 days after that he started coming to me in the morning first thing.
Yeah, so the reason why that I'm here is that we've been having these three-way conversations. William's been saying stuff from Jamal, and then I've been asking questions. So we thought, well, maybe why don't we just do this live instead of just having it for us and then share it. And so we have no idea
what's going to happen
what
here.
We're going to talk about. You know, it may have something to do with what we talked about already. It may not. We just really don't know. So,
but it's not the first time that we've done Q&As. We've just tended to do Q&As on our own, where Norma will ask me a question and somebody like Master Jesus will come through, or Buddha will come through, or Zoroaster will come through. We don't know who, and we've got these recordings that we've never shared or posted with anybody.
And there has also on William's channel, there is one that we did post, because we were talking and I was like, we got to post this. The lighting was poor and everything else because it wasn't intentional. But it's really amazing stuff that comes through. So
yeah, it's pretty remarkable when you realize that every single person on this planet has within them a connection to every other person on this planet. And we have a connection to every other being not on this planet. Like consciousness, life, is an interconnected dance of unbroken harmony. And we're going to get into all that today too, because the other thing that happens when you learn to connect to divine beings is you will get messages, and there's a unity that happens. There's a fluidity of joining that occurs. I can't put it into words, but when you experience talking to Master Jesus or Buddha or Joan of Arc or any of the divine beings that are known throughout history, when you connect to them and communicate with them, it's a feeling I can't describe. It literally is a relationship that we all have available to us at all times.
So how do you know it's a divine being, William?
Well, I'm just
communicating with.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm using the term divine being very carefully because I'm using it relative to me being in a physical body. That I call divine beings those that are able to provide me with higher knowledge, higher understanding, and demonstrate greater capabilities than I can while I'm in my physical body.
Yeah, so and my question was more in reference to the vibration, and is this of a high vibration?
Yes, it's a very high vibration. There's a feeling, for example, when Master Jesus comes to me, there's this feeling I can't describe. It's just this warmth that comes over me, this beautiful feeling. He'll often put his arms around my shoulders, and I can feel the energy of his non-physical arm around my shoulder, and this radiant love that comes from him. Where there are other beings like Lord Metatron will come through me, and he's got this very intense, almost electrical energy that pushes right through my back and out through my front. And then there's other beings like Archangel Michael when they come, and he's far more high vibrational energetic. He's got much more articulated knowledge about love and light and other things he talks about. So it's different from different beings. They're actually unique individuals.
Yes, however, there is a unified front in that what they speak about is all same for all humanity, and that is really what they're talking about is humanity. They're not really. Yeah. There's no one serving individual. They're not serving.
That's right.
Yeah. So
that's right. Even Jamal says that
not about ego boosting
Yep.
or any of that
Yep.
nature. It is for humanity as a whole, and that's an important point to stress.
Yeah, they talk about this time that humanity's in called ascension. And I ask them what ascension is, and they all say to me, ascension is the deliberate and intentional evolution of human consciousness from being strictly identified as a physical form into the awareness and beingness that they are connected to all things and are capable of creating and manifesting all things. And in fact, their physical world that these humans are in right now are a manifestation of that consciousness that we truly are. And they're very clear about that. The message is very consistent about love, about goodness, about kindness, about peace, about working as a unified whole, finding your purpose, being and doing that which you intended to come and be and do while you are in that unique physical body. And that's a repeating message over and over and over again with all of them. That much is true. They do have a unified message for all of us, but also unified messages for us as individuals too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Okay, well, he's here. He's just waiting to get started. What do you want to say first? He wants to say greetings and welcome to all of you for being here at this time in human consciousness. We have been meaning to speak to you for some time, but this one has just opened up to us in the last number of months. And so we are now in the position where we can articulate our messages to you. Yes. I, Jamal, will be speaking to you specifically about the questions that will be presented today, for I come from a unique perspective, from your perspective of life on this planet, wherein humanity was completely and fully articulated as a unified whole. Regardless of your expressions individually, you function together in a unified state. At that time in human consciousness, there were two suns in the sky, and this planet was completely tropical, what you call tropical, where there was availability of food and waters and all things you'd possibly need in great abundance everywhere. There was no need, there was no want. This whole planet was literally a Garden of Eden. I refer to the place I come from specifically as Eden because that's what we all called it.
Okay, so let's just, the two suns. There's a lot of talk about two suns. I just saw on YouTube the other day that there was a report on U.S. News, and in the back there was actually two suns. They weren't talking about the suns, but they had that on their news channel. Mm-hmm. Are these two suns?
The two suns that are being reported in your media today and by many others are shadows of what was a resurgent memory to remind humanity of this unified consciousness that we actually existed in when there were two physical suns existent surrounding this planet, keeping it as a tropical whole. This is a shadow memory, much the same way as you might remember experiencing something very beautiful yesterday or the day before or a year before or 10 years before. You can remember that thing. Well, this memory is asserting itself because with that memory, there's an entire experience of beingness, of interactivity, of interconnectivity between humanity that is attempting to be reinitialized, re-expressed into human consciousness today.
Okay, so that other sun is not another planet that many people speak of?
No, it is not another planet. It is a memory resurging itself. And all humans collectively have memory collectively. And what we're seeing is more people becoming aware of that collective memory. It is important to not get caught on the phenomena of what you think you are seeing, but to understand the meaning and the vibrational connectivity of what that projection represents to you internally and as what it represents to humanity as a unified whole.
Okay. So it can present itself even though it's not there. Like as a visual, people do see it.
Yes. I would say to you that this is not much different than you imagining suddenly you're walking through your forests and you see a stick, but your brain sees a snake and you respond to the stick like it's a snake. It is not what you thought it was, but it does represent something different. And in that moment of what it represents, the feeling that is there, if it represented fear or excitement or interest, it's important to understand the feelings that are behind the phenomena that you observe as projections like that.
Okay. So the other thing that you said is that the planet was tropical. But as the planet is with the poles, is is that like the whole planet was tropical? There wasn't cold on one side?
The entire planet was tropical. Everything. And your science has found much evidence to verify this fact. The devices that humanity is utilizing to measure time and space are not as effective as what humans would like to think of it. Your devices for measuring things scientifically today are not as accurate as what you think. 70,000 years ago, this planet was tropical, and all things existed in harmony. And that includes all other life forms. Humans did not need to consume animals. There was an abundance of natural foods. What you call the Garden of Eden, and this manifestation that you call God, was strictly an effect of the events that followed when the change happened in the electromagnetic balance between humans and animals on this planet. And that caused the change in the two suns. One left and departed.
Okay. So, so many points. So, talking about not needing to eat animals. So, if it was tropical, did we basically eat fruit?
We were predominantly vegetarians, and on the dimensions that I function on, we still are. We still do not eat what you would call physical animals. We do not eat the equivalent on our dimensional beings. We work on a very different plane. What you will identify as life here and experience here is very different than what we identify on non-physical planes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't imagine that you do eat.
Well, that's debatable. The energy has many different forms and shapes. There are only five forms of energy that we know of right now on your physical dimension, but there are an unlimited number of frequencies and experiences of what you call physical experience, of which you have no framework for comprehending at this time.
Okay.
So what you call physical here is very different where I am and where many of us go.
Okay. So, is there any other? I'm trying to remember what it was that you were saying yesterday, and I'm drawing a blank. But
you're referring to the time of sleep.
Yes.
In the original configuration of human expression on this physical dimension, there was no sleep the way you sleep today. Consciousness was fluid and unbroken. The flows of energy from the physical and non-physical dimensions were not encumbered by the beliefs in separation. But when that idea of separation happened from the events of the transformation of the planetary system as a result of the misuse of energy, the process of sleep emerged as a need to deal with the trauma that had occurred within human collective consciousness. So basically humanity shut itself off and sleeps for a third of its life. And that sleep is an unconscious state that many believe is a state for regenerating form, but it's actually the opposite. Human beings used to live for hundreds and hundreds of years in those days. And when that point of sleep occurred, that process stopped. The process of longevity ended.
So in this time that things changed, was our form different than it is today?
Well, the sizes and dimensions of bodies were very different. There were physical beings that were 12, 13 feet tall. There weren't the restrictions governing the physical manifestations as you see now. You see almost a unified configuration in physical bodies globally. But back then, because of the connectivity to the unity of human consciousness, as well as the connectivity to the source of all life, the source of love and light that provides the experience of being, allowed us the ability to alter and shape, shift and change our forms, which gives an understanding as to why so many people are altering their physical bodies now. These transformations in what you call genders are simply manifestations of energy that are coming through the form. And you use physical means here to try and manifest that. But in those days, we were able to physically alter our physicality deliberately and intentionally with deliberate thought.
So does that mean that we didn't have form as dense as we have it today, that we were more...
Well, you can say you were more enlightened in the sense that you had more energy available deliberately and consciously to use, so that you could heal your body instantaneously. The energy would follow your thought immediately. It does so today, but because of the density of emotions like anger and fear, guilt and shame, those energies actually act as a brake on the deliberate manifestation of experience. If they did not, your planet would be destroyed, because there are many people would be thinking and saying, and true to this day, that they wish they didn't live, they don't want to suffer, they want to end their pain, and those thoughts would easily change the structure of this physical world. With negative emotions, that process has been braked. The creative process happens over a period of time, but the process is essentially the same. It's just much slower. So you can't destroy your planet, you can't destroy your body with a single thought. But that in those days, a single thought you could change. You could make your skin a different color. You could change the size and density of your form. You could change your sexual expression and orientation without inhibition, without fear, without judgment, which is what is beginning to reemerge. So all these things that many of you are calling crazy today are simply and merely the reemergence of a freedom of being that existed 70,000 years ago on this planet in human consciousness.
Okay, so in regards to emotions that are not serving us, as you said, guilt and shame and anger and so on, these emotions, I'm assuming, are here because they are part of our contrast in order for us to grow and learn. Is that not the case?
Well, the misunderstanding with regards to emotion is essentially the substance that you utilize to initiate creative processes. The necessity of these negative emotions is not, in fact, an actual necessity. They were strictly a way of how the system of humanity responded and reacted to suddenly having part of its capabilities removed by the change in the environmental conditions that were a result of explorations and experimentations that changed the electromagnetic integrity of your overall, what you call your solar system today.
So who created these explorations and experimentations?
Well, again, because you are in a creative energy at all times, there are processes that you go through of things being created and uncreated, made and unmade, much the same as you can see stars and planets, many what you call light years away, being destroyed and rebuilt and assembled. Well, that creative process functions on a small planetary scale or on the individual scale. There's no restrictions in terms of how that process actually unfolds. What has changed is the trauma of the changes that happened as a result of those events that were brought about by error of perceptions and error of reason, because things were not reasoned through before the actions were taken. And that trauma has what's impacted humanity in terms of its need to have those emotions, the fear of what would happen. And so you've created all these dark walls, emotions that are painful and uncomfortable, because the possibility of creating an event similar to that always exists. Because in truth, every single human being on this planet is unlimited in its capability when connected directly to the source of its being.
So essentially what you're saying is this planet is caught up in trauma.
Not so much the planet as it is the individual beings that are able to originate separately from the consciousness of the planet. The planet has its own experience of being, and there's a different rate and frequency of that electromagnetic expression that you call life. And it's going through its process of creation and uncreation and transformation, of birth, of death, of life, much the same way as you see your individual bodies go through. But it's predominantly human consciousness on the planet that is responsible for most of the changes that have happened on this physical dimension that you call Earth.
So the trauma happened and then brought us into this fear-based state. Is this correct?
That's correct.
And then within the fear-based state, there's all sorts of emotions that have started to develop, and obviously there are those who recognize that they could utilize this energy for gain through manipulation as well. But to the people, what would you say in order to have them break free from that fear-based state?
Well, first of all, it's important that we clarify that in our time it was a very unified consciousness. In this time it's a very fragmented consciousness, but the fragmentation is a result of a trauma. What you call manipulation from one species to another, from one group to another, is simply that species' expression of that fear, that wish to avoid a trauma like that again. So maintaining artificial control over others is really maintaining artificial control over oneself to prevent that pain, to prevent that event from happening again. So humanity has remained compartmentalized because of the fears of what happened, that a unified consciousness may in fact be perceived unconsciously as a threat, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, very much so.
So in truth, there are no humans that are truly operating against one another, but all humans are interactively, that are functioning in appearance to be against one another, are in fact seeking to avoid the recreation of that trauma.
Yes. And I understand that in the sense that all people who are experiencing pain, if you're experiencing pain and you're projecting it out there, you're doing so because you're trying to protect your own self in your own mindset. But if you're experiencing pain and projecting it out, you're creating pain and you're creating harm and you're doing a disservice to yourself and to others. Happy people don't hurt other people, but people who are hurting hurt other people. So, but they hurt other people because they're hurting and they want to protect. Same sort of circle.
Yes. As long as humans choose to remember, they will perpetuate their suffering as well as they will perpetuate their good. When we functioned from the present moment, we always functioned in harmony.
Yeah.
There was no disharmony. When we deviated from being what we are in the present moment, we got caught up in future possibilities based on past experiences, which is where humanity is stuck right now. Future possibilities, future experiences, what you experience as trauma and pain and suffering and joy and bliss are all effects based on the memories of what was, not on what the experience of being is. And when you come to the understanding of what your being is, you can make far better state of expression than what you know now. You come from a state of unified love, of recognizing that you are not separate from the other, that your interest in being is equal to the interest in the being of others. From that perspective, you operate from what you call, on this dimension, love. It is the process that's trying to reemerge itself and reassert itself, for the polarity of duality no longer serves the expression of love. So what you call fear on one hand and love on the other are merely terms that denote opposites, but love in its true essence engages in truth none of these. It is the knowing of being and the knowing of doing from that knowing of being.
So love, in the essence of true being, does not engage in either love? Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct. What you've labeled as love and fear are polarities that are serving the protection of oneself from revisiting or recreating experiences from the past that are painful. And those two dance back and forth. The state of being, which is what we call true love, is what you actually articulate in the moment of being that which you are. Being that which you are in the moment does not require that you have to think or emote. Although you get to experience the bliss of being, you are not required to think about what that is. You are just doing what you are. Much the same way as what you call the lower life forms on your planet are actually not lower life forms. They are merely beings that are being what they are in the doing of what they're being. In other words, what you call cows and cats and dogs and birds are being that which they are in the manifestation of their being. Humans have not achieved that since the changes in consciousness on this dimension 70,000 years ago. But that process of desiring to be that which you are is unfolding rapidly. It is a process that many of you call ascension today. And this process of ascension is designed specifically to reconnect you and all others back into the state of unified being, which will necessitate spontaneously the respect and dignity and love and compassion that needs to be extended to all forms of life on this planet and to the planet itself, which in turn has a residual and ripple effect on interacting and interconnecting and reconnecting the planetary consciousnesses which have been separated because of the separation that occurred 70,000 years ago.
So I like the point that you make about going back. It's because we're taking from our past. And I thought of an example with fish who are in harmony in the ocean in a big school, and they're just off, and nobody bumps into one another. No, they work totally in harmony. But if they were in their past, whereby yesterday they got attacked by some big fish that wanted to eat them, and they're thinking that way, then they would be bumping into one another, and all of a sudden things would become awry. But because they're being in the moment, and they're not thinking of the past of that shark that had hit them, and then they're going to turn and bump into another fish, they flow. And we've lost that.
That is correct. While it is lost, it is in the process of being found.
Yes.
But that is a very beautiful analogy that you can see with the birds in the sky or herding animals, that there is a fluidity of being that does not negate the individual expressions of the members of that collective, but allows them to flow joyfully together in a dance, which is what, when I walked this earth plane, we saw animals and numbers and beings and species here from many different dimensions, many different galaxies that could function together as a unified whole. And it was a wonder to witness, like, your skies turning dark because there's a herd of beings flying overhead, or the sky is turning quite bright because there's beings flying overhead, because that's what there is, or the ground glowing and moving and shifting because the consciousness there was dancing within itself and interacting with every other part of every other part. For if you watch nature carefully, whether it be on the oceans or in the lands or in the airs, you will see that every part does function fluidly and harmoniously together. It is only the current humanity living from the pain of its past that keeps perpetuating the separations that you see as the form of enslavement and punishment and suffering that is imparted onto other life forms on this planet, but also onto humanity itself by the very nature of its own separation from its present. So that present being is essential. Being in the present is essential for you to fully actualize the capabilities of who and what you truly are here.
So how do we practice that? How do we become beings in the moment?
You've got to forget about remembering. You've got to stop remembering your suffering. You have to stop remembering anything that is bad and painful, for you resurrect it by the very nature of giving it attention. It has to stop. You have to stop focusing on your pain and your suffering. Learn to be in the present moment. There are many groups, many organizations emerging on this planet today for that purpose of facilitating the natural, spontaneous state of your being what it is in the present moment. And you cannot be that which you are outside of the present moment.
So what if in my present moment things are happening that are making me very upset and sad?
Well, again, you are focusing on that which was before. And of course, if you focus on that which you think you do not have, you will feel sad because you're telling yourself you do not have it. But in a true state of being, you lack nothing. And in that state of knowing that you lack nothing, you cannot experience sadness, nor anger, nor fear, nor guilt, nor shame. It is when you decide that you think you are missing something that you create this vacuum inside your own being, which is a contradiction, because you are a whole being. You are united to a massive quality of consciousness that spans infinity. And you are not separate from that, but in your belief of separation, you create pain.
So it's our belief of separation. If we truly knew that we were whole, and that individual who is doing something to us to make us feel a certain way, that it's that individual who's feeling that way, and we don't take it on.
You are getting into the concepts of projection and blame and denial, where the individual makes the capabilities they wish to experience their life by outside of themselves, which is impossible. Life is not outside of you. It is connected to you, through you, and around you simultaneously. But in your ability and willingness to cultivate a state of wholeness and completeness in the present moment, to feel your creative power flowing freely in whatever fashion you wish it to be, whether it be painting or dance or art or astral traveling or connecting with others or drumming in a circle or whatever methodology you choose to express your being. In the free-flowing expression of that being, there is no discontinuity. It is when we resist the free flow of our being, it is when that person is calling your name and you get upset about them calling your name, that you actually reinforce the very separation that that individual is projecting towards you. Your willingness to recognize the pain of that individual and realize, oh, they're in separation. I send love to them. And in that decision to connect to them from a perspective of unity actually diminishes the very projection that they're stuck in themselves. You liberate yourself and you liberate others through that process.
And so why are so many feelings separate? Again, it's the trauma that occurred.
Well, we've already expressed that. The idea of separation is a deviation from where you are in the present moment. In this moment we are communicating. I feel bliss in this communication. I feel good in this communication. I feel connected to all that may be connected in this. I don't feel that there's any form of separation. And in that awareness, there is a part of me that says, oh, there are things that are going on that are effects of other beings on this planet that some will call trauma. But I'm not connected to that. I'm aware of that, but I'm not connected to that. And it is my awareness of being now that doesn't separate me from the knowledge that, oh, there are things that are occurring in this world that you call good or evil, that can be transcended. But my willingness to be in this present moment in a state of love and grace about those things is actually affecting and changing and altering those things while I'm in this form speaking through this individual. Much the same way as you, while you were in that physical form, sitting there in a state of love and grace and feeling the joy and the bliss that you're feeling right now, are affecting changes in those things too. But you don't have to try and stop them or fight them or get a gun out and shoot them. You merely have to be in a state of being love. And that very nature of that energy is creating a change in the consciousness that unifies all that are on this dimensional plane that you call Earth. And it is that causative energy of beingness that you work from that demonstrates the effects in this physical form, much the same way as any emotional state that you find yourself indulging in, whether that be fear or joy, will cause immediate changes in the physical expression of your being. In the physical expression of your being, which you have control and command over when you understand that you are not subjective to the emotional currents of your past, but you in fact have a choice over what you are being in the moment. Right? And that is a choice that everybody on this dimension is in the process of remembering how to assert and be again. You know, you cannot be unless you know you are. And if you're trapped in being something separate from where you are, well, then you can't change what you're being because you're thinking something's being done or imposed upon you and you can't change it.
So there are so many things that people have brought up with that have brought them to a position of feeling pain. We experience it in our daily lives. Some of us do. Television, movies, news, of course. So essentially the bottom line is go towards that makes you feel good.
Yes.
This in here is our antenna.
Yes.
The feeling is the antenna to know what is right for us and what is not. And when there are things that are occurring in our life that make us feel in any way not good inside, then to turn away from it and go towards something that makes us feel good inside, because that impact of what we're feeling in here has an impact out there.
Yes.
Because there is no out there.
That's correct. There are specific organs in the human body that if you pay attention to them, they will tell you when you are moving away from the present moment or to the present moment. The heart is a very powerful organ in your body, and it's the source of the what you would call, your science would call plasma, that keeps the body animated is centered in your heart. But that is also connected to another organ in the body called what your science calls the pineal gland. And these two things are very sensitive to energy. So if somebody calls you a name, oftentimes you'll feel it up here or in here. Or if somebody, you see an event that disturbs you, you'll feel it in here. And it tells you when you are focusing on something in such a way that you're taking yourself away from the moment. And you can correct it. So if you find yourself being stimulated into a place of fear, uncertainty, or sadness, you can know in the awareness of that energy, that feeling state, whether it be in here or up in the head, that you can bring that place to a place of relaxation, a place of peace, through breath, through calmness of movement, through quiet, still thought. You can restore equilibrium to your physical body and your energy system.
And here too, the gut.
Yes. What some call the solar plexus is where you actually project energy into this world to manifest as forms. You can formulate in your mind and in your heart, you formulate the truth of what experience you wish to have in your mind. If you're formulating an experience of joy, you'll feel your heart expand. If you're formulating an experience of fear, you'll feel your heart contract. And then when those two combined will actually create a projection from the physical center here out into this physical world and cause the effects that you see around you energetically.
Oh, it comes out of here, does it?
Yes.
I had no idea. Interesting, though. Very interesting. Well, that was lovely.
Yep. Yes, it was lovely indeed.
Thank you.
It was our honor. He's saying, be patient in this time and seek out anyone that would seek to show you how to still your consciousness, to return to a place of what you will define as your feelings of good. Seek out any organization, any group, any individuals that can show you how to be still, how to make this still, how to remember the unlimited capabilities that you have available to you at all times. I came here today with the explicit idea of communicating to you the vibrational frequencies that are more than just the words that have been spoken here. There are certain qualities of being that are communicated within what you call sound waves and visual light waves. There are other frequencies that are being projected into this realm through meetings like this. And there are many beings on this planet now coming forward that do this exact same process, that bring others through, such as myself, that enable humanity to have a different perspective of its experience beyond what it recognizes its experience to be based on its past. You must transcend your past. By transcend your past, I mean specifically be willing to live in the present, to be able to hold in the present moment the envisionment of the life that you would love to be experiencing, not to try and make or manipulate others into being into that experience, but to know the feeling state that would be most conducive to your being in a state of love, joy, or bliss. And to that end, we all work through this process.
Mm-hmm. I think that basically every sentence you say, we could definitely get into it and get a deeper understanding of what exactly you're saying, getting into the feeling state of, and transmitting a vibration through voice. Of course it goes, we can definitely get into that deeper.
Yeah. Well, he's standing right over here now. Like he's actually standing right here, and he's got this long white ivory-like staff. I don't think it's ivory, but it's white staff. I'm saying ivory because that's the color. And he's just tapping it on the ground 3 times. And he's saying, I've tapped this 3 times because that is a very powerful number in the creative process. 3 times. He's saying if you focus on something, a new idea, a new thought, 3 times with great intensity, it becomes a functional part of your biology very quickly. 3 times. But I want to thank Jamal, and I know there's other beings that came through. I didn't, I could feel it, but it's sometimes it's difficult for me to differentiate when they come, but when they're there, I can feel them. I know it's not Jamal, I know it's somebody else. I can probably backtrack, but they're saying the names of who we are not important. What is important is that you understand that you are limited only by the beliefs that you hold in your mind and the emotions that you would choose to keep remembering. When you begin to release those things, you will find yourself free. And they stress that to me all the time, that we are free when we release ourselves from our attachment to the past. And in addition to that, when you release yourself from the attachment to the past that is painful, you release yourself from recreating that painful past in your future or present. Yeah. Like I said, this process of channeling, which is relatively consciously new to me in the last couple of years, has been it's been an amazing road, an amazing journey. I've changed so many things, how I eat, how I sleep, what I do, what I don't do. When you have the knowledge and wisdom of beings that have lived tens of thousands of years, some of them, coming and speaking to you, and you are like a child to them, and yet they love you because they nurture those who are growing. But when you start opening up to that capability, it's amazing what you have available to you that this world does not offer us, but that life is always offering us. Mm-hmm. Like Archangel Michael is always offering to help us with negative emotions. Mm-hmm. You know, as Master Jesus is always trying to teach people about the value of being love, of being whole, being complete. Mm-hmm. And like I said, open yourself up to different opportunities of experiencing new ways of viewing your life, because it'll change you completely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you guys for anybody who's, this is our first time actually doing this way. Well, we've done this before, but it's our first time actually where we set things up. We took the time to do this the way they suggested that we did it. And we hope you've enjoyed this. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, share it, because this information is not exclusive. This is universal information, and it's an honor and privilege to be able to share it with you.
And we plan on doing more, most definitely. So if you have any questions, just put them down below, and then we'll be bringing in other people, and we can add those questions.
Yeah. They're telling me to say to all of you that whoever you have the greatest affinity for, whether that be Jesus or Buddha or Ganesh or Kali, whichever of the divine ones that you connect to in your own consciousness, please make a conscious choice to reach out to us. We will come to you in ways that you will know it is us. For we are not limited to this one any more than you are limited to that physical form. So reach out to us. We are here for you and with you. We bless you all. Much love. That is it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.